Hello, everybody. Welcome to Beyond the Steps, where we chat with a guest expert to break down one question from a wide range of issues affecting performance athletes, from racism to gender equity, sex abuse and prevention, nutrition, psychology, and of course, science. We've got it all. I'm Bree Zabrowski, co-founder and CEO of Apollo Performance Wear, here with my co-host and friend and entrepreneur, dance educator, and social justice advocate, the fabulous Melissa McDaniel Grisham. Before we get started today, I do want to put a trigger warning on today's episode. If you are triggered in any way, at any point, by any part of this conversation or topic today, we encourage you to step away, protect your peace. That is the most important thing, to take care of you. Today, we're chatting with Fonda Bryant about the signs of suicide risk and what we can do to help, especially our youth. Melissa, let's tell them a little bit about Fonda, and then we can get started.
So I am so excited to introduce Fonda Bryant, who I've known for many, many years, and I have seen her trajectory in being such a strong mental health advocate in Charlotte and in the nation. Fonda, when it comes to speaking on mental health issues, Fonda is who you want in your corner. She serves on the state board of the National Alliance on Mental Health Illness of North Carolina, volunteers with NAMI Cabarrus County, the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, and MHA of Central Carolina. She started her own foundation in February 2020, right on time in the middle of that pandemic, called Wellness Action Recovery Incorporated. It's a nonprofit organization geared towards putting in the work for mental wellness and recovery through positive actions. She's been awarded a bunch of awards, y'all. If I listed all these awards, we would be here for a whole day.
She just got one last night.
She got one last night. I mean, hello, she's coming fresh off an award. I'm just gonna do the ones from the last year. How about that? The last 2 years or so. She's been awarded the 2021 Black Mental Health Symposium Advocate of the Year, 2021 Next Star Media Remarkable Woman of Charlotte. And that was out of 10,000 remarkable women across the country. And in 2021, Next Star Media National Remarkable Woman of the Year. So those are just the most recent ones, and not including the one from last night that she received. Her QPR suicide prevention training has been featured nationally on CBS Weekend News and in Essence Magazine. Thank you so much, Fonda, for taking the time out from receiving awards and helping people live their best, most healthy lives to come be with us today. QPR training has produced, I know in talking to you in the last few weeks, some amazing results. So I want you to share with people. Tell us how many people you've actually trained, do you think, if you know for sure, through this program, and what the feedback has been like?
Oh man, QPR training stands for question, persuade, refer. And a lot of people have had CPR, where you help someone who's having a heart attack or a stroke to help them save their life, get them back on the path of wellness and recovery. Well, QPR is the same thing. It is to help someone who is suicidal or in crisis, a mental health crisis, to get the help that they need to get back on the path of wellness and recovery. So I became an instructor in 2018, but really hadn't done a lot of training. And then when the pandemic hit, I decided, hey, I want to help other people while this is going on. So I started doing QPR training online, and I had no idea how it was going to take off. Um, uh, uh, what do you call a news? I'm trying to think what it is right now. Anyway, I started training. I got it out there with the local media, Channel 9 and some other stations. And so a internet news media picked it up. And then next thing I knew, it had like 60,000 views and people started reaching out. So I started paying for my own, go-to meeting and started training people. And I started training like twice a week I started March 26th of 2020, and I would train on Wednesday and Saturday. And then I took a break because I'm going to tell you, sharing my story, it takes a lot out of you. It does. So I took a break in June, started back in July of 2020, and finished up on December 19th. And I had trained over 1,000 people from 25 states and 12 countries, Africa, England, Puerto Rico, and I was like, man, this is awesome. So I said, I'm not going to stop. And I picked it back up in 2021, and I was trying to do it every other Saturday, but that was really blocking up my time because not everybody would jump on it. So I said, okay, I don't want to quit doing it free and I don't want to quit doing it. So I offer QPR training once a month on Saturday. And it's still been steady. So to answer your question, I have no idea how many people I've trained at this point. I have no idea how many classes because I also do it in person and I train
Mhm.
students as well in a training called QPR for youth. And the only difference between the adult QPR training and the youth, we urge youth to go tell an adult. And I had that situation when I first started training in 2020 here at the high school I work, Hopewell. A student in the marching band took the training. And as soon as she got off, she called the school and told that one of her bandmates was going to kill herself. And so they were able to get to the young lady and get her help. And my principal called me and she said, was so and so in your class? And I said, yes. She said she just saved somebody's life. So the training works. It's two
Gotcha.
hours, 2 hours out of your day, and it gives you spider sense. You will look at people differently. You will listen more intently, and you will feel comfortable getting them help if you take the training. So I love it. It has saved lives, and it continues to do so. And as long as that happens, I'm going to continue to train.
Gosh, you are an angel. You are doing such important work, and congratulations on all of the recognition that you're getting. We are really we're thrilled and honored to have you here and get your
Thank
insight and
you.
your wisdom. 'Cause it is much needed. I want to jump right into it because you and I were talking before that we started recording about how suicide and mental health awareness is something that's impacting people of all ages, and we're seeing an increase in awareness among our youth. And it feels like either from people who have had the thoughts or people who have been impacted by someone who has committed suicide. Um, this is a conversation that is becoming more and more prevalent. Do you think suicide and the idea of suicide is happening more often, or do you think people are just willing to talk about it more openly and that there is more overall awareness now?
Well, I think this is just my personal opinion. When somebody famous dies by suicide, that's when we
Yeah.
talk about it really. Because we just lost Twitch, we have lost Kate Spade, we have lost Anthony Bourdain, we lost Chesley Chris, and that's when those conversations start. But we need to be talking about it every day because the same day that they died, we're losing over 130 Americans a day. And by the way, these stats that I'm telling y'all guys, they're underreported. So it's a whole lot worse than what I'm telling y'all. So we lose about 130 Americans every day. Over 44 veterans die by suicide daily. And for each completed suicide, there are 25 attempts. So we're talking about close to 4,000 Americans that attempt suicide every day. And if you think it's bad in the United States, because first off, every 11 minutes, somebody dies in the United States by suicide. Worldwide, it's even worse. Every 40 seconds, somebody dies by suicide worldwide. Over 2,000 people die a day worldwide, and 50,000 people attempt suicide every single day. Where's the outcry for that? So I have the compassion and empathy for those who are famous that die, but I want people to look at the whole picture of how many people are dying every day. It is the second leading cause of death for young people 10 to 34. We have more people that die in the United States by suicide than car deaths and homicides combined. It's the
Hmm.
second leading cause of death on college campuses. Over 1,400 college students die every year by suicide, and over 24,000 college students attempt every year. Right now, Black males have the highest rate of suicide out of any ethnic group. And see, when I was brought up, oh, Black people don't die by suicide. That's so false because right now, after a 2 year decline, suicide is up. And the two groups it has affected the most are young people 10 to 24 and Black people. It has jumped for Black people from 8.2% to 11.2%, a 36.6 increase.
Wow.
So that's why I keep
Wow.
saying when a celebrity dies and everybody's focusing and has that compassion and empathy, where's the compassion and empathy for all these other people out here dying every day? Every
Mhm.
day. And that's why this is you hear me say all the time, if you look at my social media, suicide is everybody's business. But you know what? The thing is about suicide, it's the most preventable death of all deaths. If people would
Yeah.
just care and get educated on those warning signs, I would not be here if my Aunt Spanky, when I called her 28 years ago and told her she could have my shoes. Now, she could have said, like I hear a lot of Black people say, oh, they just want attention. Well, when I teach you QPR, suicide prevention training, I tell you take all signs seriously. I don't care if they told you 49 times, I'm going to kill myself. You take it serious 49 times because that one time you say, oh, they're not going to do it, could be that exact time. And then she called me back and she said, are you going to kill yourself? And I said, yes. And she went into action like a superhero and saved my life. So I tell everybody, you need to be like Aunt Spanky. You need to have Aunt Spanky because she saved my
Mhm.
life. And so many people don't realize that they can save somebody's life. But I think people get caught up in, well, if I save their life and they still die, that's my fault. No, it's not, because we have to want to live and we have to want to put in the work every day.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Oh my gosh, thank you. So tell us the biggest misconception or judgment about people who are at risk or who have committed suicide. What is the biggest misconception you hear out there?
The biggest misconception is that we're weak, that we're
Mhm.
crazy, that were selfish. When I was growing up, I remember when Donny Hathaway died, the famous singer, in 1979. He jumped from a hotel window in New York, and I was like, man, that was really selfish. Years later, we found out that Donny Hathaway was dealing with bipolar. I think he was dealing with schizophrenia. So
Mhm.
thing is 90% of people, and I'm getting a lot of these stats from the CDC, but also American Foundation for Suicide Prevention website. And on their website, it says 90% of people who die by suicide have a treatable mental health condition. But the reason why we don't get help or come to y'all is because of that judgment. We feel like
Mhm.
in that moment, we feel like no one cares and no one understands. And that other big thing is that, like, take for instance, Twitch. He was famous, he was a dancer, and he was Black and a man. So imagine him trying to go to somebody who might not be that well versed or educated in mental
Right.
health, friend, and said, hey, you know what? I'm struggling. I'm thinking about killing myself. I'm dealing with depression. What's wrong with you? You got money, you got fame, because people equate happiness with material things a lot of times. And that has
Mhm.
nothing to do with anything. We have so much discrimination in this country, but one thing that does not discriminate is mental health. It treats us all the
Mhm.
same. Whether you got $10 million in the bank, $10 in the bank, Miss USA, a dancer, it doesn't care. It does not care. It will kill
Mhm.
you. And if it does not kill you, it wreaks havoc in your life from poor decisions, bad
Mhm.
judgment, incarceration, self medicating. So the biggest misconception, like I said before, is just the you're weak. You can handle it. Just suck it up. And that's what is killing us. And that's why we don't come and open up, that fear of judgment.
Mhm. That
Yeah,
is so
and that's the biggest thing I think that Melissa, you probably heard this too. Like, I think that was what was so shocking about Twitch is all of us were looking at it going, he had it all.
right.
Like why? Why? It makes no sense. And that was it's always hard to swallow, right? And it's always
Mhm.
hard to understand. But that was just I think it just was so powerful because we were all going, this doesn't
Right.
make any sense,
Right. And I
and what
also, oh, go
yeah.
ahead.
No, go ahead. Keep going.
With him and with Twitch being in the dance community, I think we've all
Yeah.
had actions with him or been in proximity to him, and he was such a light to everyone and
Yeah.
uplifted so many other people. It was so hard to believe that you know either no one was there for him or like he was struggling so much.
Yeah.
So I think that we're going to talk a little bit later about like how to educate ourselves on the warning signs. That's why it's so important because it's not I'm screaming from the rooftops, I'm going to commit suicide. There are little things, seemingly little things that are actually really really big things that
Yeah.
we need to be watching out for. If go
Oh,
ahead,
go
Fonda.
ahead.
I was just going to say, if you are just now joining us, We're talking to Fonda Bryant about how we can better educate ourselves to recognize the signs of suicide and to take action to prevent suicide, particularly in our young performance athletes that could be possibly struggling. So please share this episode. This is so very important. Also, if you are watching this episode and you are triggered in any way, please make sure that you step away. These are fully recorded and released, so you can watch these at another time. But please protect your peace and make sure you stay safe and healthy throughout this episode. Fonda, you train educators and other adults on how to recognize the signs in a person who might have these suicidal ideations or these ideas. Also, how to handle disclosure from a person who might be in crisis. Why is being proactive about this training instead of trying to get it after you have a disclosure or after you've seen something? Why is it so important to be proactive about getting this type of training?
The thing is about why it's so important to be proactive is because we can stop somebody from dying. We can stop someone. I mean, this training is just excellent because, like I said, it gives you almost spider sense. And the thing is, I always tell people when I do the training, I hope you never have to use this training, but I'm pretty sure you're going to have to. And a perfect example, I trained Greystone Academy, all their staff, all their teachers back in September of last year, Suicide Prevention Month. And one of the teachers is a friend of mine. And she told me about a month after I finished training them, she said, I've already used that training 5 times to ask the question. So the thing is that if you're going to set up and help someone, you got to take into account, like you said, you got to be able to talk to them and you got to be able for them to feel comfortable, and you can't be sitting up telling their business to other people. This is just very, very important. Now, you might have to get, and we'll talk about this, I'm sure, a little bit later, law enforcement involved. You might have to get other people involved, but it's very important that when you're helping someone who's struggling, that you make them feel comfortable, that they can come to you, they can talk to you, there won't be any judgment, and they don't have to worry about a couple of hours later, all their information out there for other people. It's just so important because this is such a, in our society, I tell people all the time, we make fun of people with mental health. We do. And one of the things I always tell people is my best friend died from breast cancer. And I said, would you make fun of somebody who lost one breast? Would you call them lopsided? Would you call someone who had both their breasts removed flat chested? No, you wouldn't. So why do people think it's okay to call people crazy or call people nuts or call people psycho? Or every time there's a mass killing, who gets blamed for it? So those are some of the things that we can start doing now. Little things like that can make a big difference. And when you talk about Twitch, for instance, he did 2 things. See, when everybody says they were shocked, like when Chesley Chris died, when Twitch died, I wasn't shocked because I know how mental health is. And the thing is, he did 2 things that let me know that he was going to kill himself. And I talk about this in training. Number 1, he called his grandfather and told him he loved him. His grandfather said, where'd that come from? He was telling him bye. So what I do is when I train, I'll walk up to one of the students, like when I'm doing with the youth, and I'll say, if somebody came up to you and said, thank you for being such a great friend. I love you. I care about you. You've been great. What would you think? And they say, oh, I would just think they're being nice. No, they're telling you goodbye. So you need to ask them, what do you mean by that? Are you thinking about hurting yourself? Would you like to talk? I'm here to listen. So he did that. Another thing that he did, he said, and I read this in a report, I had, HAD, a good life. Not I'm having a good life, not I have a good life. I had, in past tense. If I'd have heard him say that or somebody saying that, I'd have been like, what do you mean by that? You had. You mean you have? Because you're going to open up that conversation. So it's little things that people can do, that people will say, people can do to pick up on to be able to help that person. And that's why, again, this training is so important and knowing what to do to help someone who's struggling.
Now, I know you mentioned earlier that you also train children. And I know that some people would think that training children in this or quote unquote putting the burden on children to do this type of work or to have this type of training is too mature of an issue. It's too much for them, too much to confront them with. How do you get past people who believe that?
Well, you know what? I tell them to look at the stats. I tell them the stats that we have children younger than 10 years old dying by suicide. And like I was telling Bree when I first started talking to her, I said, one of the things that I always do is I ask youth, how many of y'all are struggling or somebody's struggling? Everybody's hand goes up. So my age range for QPR training for youth is about middle school, but I'd really like to start training them at least in fifth grade. Because when you talk to these students, you really talk to them, they already know. They know friends who've attempted suicide. They know friends who are thinking about it. And the thing is with this training, we don't give youth enough credit. They can handle a whole lot more and they want to help their friends. They want
Mm-hmm.
to. One of the students came up to me, the coach here at Hopewell made his JV team take the training. And one of the young men told me, he said, Miss Fonda, he said, your training is excellent. He said, not only does it help me to help others, he said, it helps me to gauge my own mental health. So see, that's another
Wow.
piece to the QPR training. It helps you to gauge your own mental health. What's going on with me? Am I okay today? Maybe I need to go and talk to somebody. Am I displaying some of these signs? I'm not eating. I'm not sleeping. Those kind of things. So something, to be quite honest, Melissa, I have not had really any pushback from parents
Really?
wanting their kids trained. And as a matter of fact, I have a lot of parents coming to me asking me, hey, can you train my children? I say, if you get a group of 10 together, I'll train them. So, something, that's a great question because I haven't had that issue. Because
Wow.
That's
when I start telling them about the stats, when I start telling them what these youth are saying to me, the parents are like, please, please, can you train my children?
Mm.
I want to expand on the youth topic because so we talked prior to this about how you know our my kids are in an elementary school together. They're 10, about to be 10 and 7, and the school is now offering at the demand of everyone in the community and the students and the parents and the educators. They're offering mental health services free to the entire district at any age, but specifically kids that play or youth that are engaged in competitive or high profile environments like sports and arts. Oftentimes we can label those kids as being more resilient because they've adapted to those environments. But are they more at risk or the same as everybody else? Can you talk about that a little bit?
Well, you put more pressure when they're athletes, especially if they want to do it at the high school level and going on to college. And then when you have coaches, and that's something we definitely have to work on, is a lot of the coaches think that mental health is a sign of weakness too. So if a student wants to play sports and they might be struggling and they have a coach that doesn't believe in mental health or looks at mental health as a sign of weakness, that's where parents really need to step up and let them know, hey, if you're struggling, come to me. Because I'm proud to say during this past summer, I trained all coaches and administrators with the Charlotte Soccer Academy. And the owner reached out to me and asked me to train. And so he said, we want our coaches to recognize the signs. We want our coaches to be able to open up and let these kids know that it's okay not to be okay. So that's one of the things is we got to change the culture of how coaches view mental health. When I go and speak to athletes, I make the coaches come in because I can talk to the student athletes all day, but if the coaches aren't on board with
Absolutely.
mental health, then they're not going to buy into that. And again, I have talked to players at Clemson, Wake Forest, all over the country. And a lot of them tell me it's no way I'm going to talk to my coach about mental health because of the way the mindset is. Suck it up, get over it, man up,
Yeah.
toughen it up. And I told Coach Clausen, who's at Wake Forest one day, he said mentally tough. I told him I hate those two words together. I said, what does that mean? So you got to realize that some of these young kids, when they get into that mindset of playing sports, they want to do whatever it takes to make it to the next level because athletes are looked upon as heroes, as they're worshiped. So you as a parent have to make sure that those coaches are on board to know, hey, if my child is struggling, not just physically, but mentally, I need to know about it. And you should be open to the fact to let them know, hey, if something's going on from the top of your head to the bottom of your feet, we're going to make sure that you get the help that you need. And that's why I was so proud of the Charlotte Soccer Academy for Brad to take it upon himself to say, hey, I want all my coaches trained. And I got every single one of them trained over the summer.
Fantastic. That's
Yeah.
so great. For those just joining, I am Bree Zabrowski with Apollo Performance Wear here with my friend and co-host Melissa McDaniel Grisham. We're chatting today with Fonda Bryant about the risks of suicide, how we can identify what those red flags are, and what do we do about it. This is we are putting a trigger warning on this episode. Again, if you're just jumping in, protect your peace. These are fully recorded and available to watch later. So if you have to step away for any reason, please do so. Protect your peace. Take care of yourself first, and this will be here later. So, Fonda, we've been talking about your program called QPR Suicide Prevention Training, and it's been featured nationally on CBS Weekend News, Essence Magazine. You've won countless awards. There are some people who are probably wondering if this type of training is right for them and or their students. I know it's a very comprehensive training, obviously, but can you give us just a high level overview of what are the major areas of focus
Okay.
for this program?
Well, it's 2 hours, and in the time you watch a movie, you can learn how to save someone's life. Now, suicide and mental health are heavy subjects. They're not warm and fuzzy subjects. But this training is very positive. It's very upbeat, and in the foundation is not being judgmental. I had somebody take my training one time, and they told me, they said, you would have never known that this was about suicide because it was so positive and upbeat. So the thing is, it's about learning what to look out for, and it's three concepts in that training: indirect and direct verbal clues. Direct verbal clues: I'm going to kill myself, I'm going to take my own life, I'm going to commit suicide. And I stop right there at the one that says I'm going to commit suicide, and I tell you, please do not use that terminology. Most people don't realize this, but before 1971, suicide, if you took your own life or attempted suicide, it was a criminal act. You commit a robbery, you commit a crime. You do not commit suicide. So I stop right there and let everybody know, please do not use that terminology. You can use died by suicide, kill themselves, completed suicide. I hate all of them. That's why we're working so hard. But words matter, especially when it comes to mental health. And that's why I tell people, be mindful of what you say. So WSOC TV here in Charlotte, one of our stations that does a lot with mental health and suicide prevention, um, said they would no longer use that terminology, commit suicide. So I tell people, be mindful of what you say, because you're sitting up and saying somebody committed suicide, and that's considered a criminal act. And we know suicide is not
I
a
didn't
criminal.
know that.
So we have that. Indirect verbal clues: I'm not going to be around here much longer. Pretty soon, you're not going to have to worry about me. So when somebody says something like that, you should say, well, are you all right? Are you okay? Would you like to talk about this? Are you thinking about hurting yourself? And one of the things that I bring in is, I always bring in resources, is American Foundation for Suicide Prevention has this great tool called Seize the Awkward. It's a great tool that when you get finished with the QPR training and I send you your certificate, you get a link that you can click on, and it teaches you how to start the conversation, during the conversation, and how to end the conversation. It's a great tool. You don't have to be in a professional setting. You can be walking, you can be, somewhere, but you need to always make sure you're in a private setting. So it's that. Also, behavioral clues. How's that person acting? Are they giving away prized possessions like I did? And it doesn't have to be of money. It doesn't have to be anything like that. It could be something as simple as, like I said, something I value. And I come up and say, here, I want you to have this. You need to ask them, what do you mean? Why are you giving me this? Are you thinking about hurting yourself? Are you thinking about killing yourself? It could be where you're getting all your things in order. You're getting your personal life in order. So, behavioral clues. something like that. As I said, how you're acting. My whole personality changed when I was suicidal. I'm very talkative and outgoing. I was very quiet and withdrawn. I take great pride in my appearance. My appearance changed. Is that person eating too much? Are they using drugs? Are they where they used to go to church? They're not going to church anymore. So we have the behavioral clues, situational clues, another piece, situational clues. What is going on in that person's life that they might want to take their own life? Are they dealing with financial issues? Are they dealing with looking at jail time?
Mhm.
Those kind of things, it's just all these, like one thing out of that bunch might not be anything. But the more that you observe by that person, the more you start picking up and saying, hey, this person might be going down that path.
Two questions.
Hmm.
What happens if you're alerted, right? Like, this does not sound right to me. You poke, you prod, you say, "Hey, are you okay? We can talk," and you're just shut out. No, 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 I'm fine. Everything's good. There's just nothing coming from that person.
Okay.
What do you do then?
Okay, I get that a lot. Like if and that's part of the training too. If the person is reluctant, you still need to be persistent. You
Mhm.
plant that seed. You let them know, "Hey, I'm here for you. I will help you get help. I will go with you." And something else you do. If that person is saying no, no, no or whatever, "I'm fine," you start gathering information. Know your resources. Type in mental health resources in my area or in that person's area. You can ask
Okay.
them, do you have insurance? You can ask them, do you have an employee assistance program? You start gathering information. So the next time you go back to them, you can say, here's some information. I will go with you. Let me help you get help. And it's funny you say that because 2 years ago, there was a young man by the name of Chaz Ayu. He is a football player at BYU. He's 6'2", 200 and something pounds, attractive. Mom's white, had mental health issues, drug problems. Dad was black, nowhere to be found. He was adopted by the Ayus. Joanne is Polynesian, dad is Samoan, one of the coaches at BYU. They're Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saint. So when George Floyd was murdered, the BYU football team got together and they did a video called Be the Change. I did not know Chaz from Adam, but when they did that video and he was the first one up and he said, "Be the change," I knew something was wrong. And so when they got finished, all these, because Utah is very white and
Mhm.
very conservative. So they started jumping on them, saying, "Shut up. Black Lives Matter is ruining the family." So Chaz decided to tweet something. He didn't say I'm suicidal. He didn't say I'm in crisis. He said, um, he said, "Funny how y'all are cheer for us when we're on the field, but we need you to understand our pain, not fight it." My spider sense just went off. And so I knew something was wrong. So I sent him a message in his DM and I said, "Hey, young man, are you all right? Are you okay?" Because let me make this clear. As great as my training is, as great as QPR, suicide prevention training is, the best way to save somebody's life is simply caring, checking on them. Are you all right? Are you okay? So I sent him a message in his DM and I said, "Are you all right? Are you okay?" Hours passed. So he came back and he said, "Yes, ma'am, I'm fine." In the QPR training, it says, if you feel somebody's suicidal, you ask them right away. I asked him straight out. I said, "Are you suicidal? Do you have a plan?" He disappeared for 2 weeks. But in the meantime, that second part of QPR training says, if the person is reluctant, you be persistent. So for 2 weeks, I was like, "Let me help you. I can help you. Please let me help you. I'm a survivor," all this stuff. He came back 2 weeks later. He said, "Let me ask you something." He said, "Did my parents put you up to this?" I said, "No, I don't know your parents." And I didn't at the time. He said, "Did my coach put you up to it?" And I said, "No," because one of the coaches was on. I said, "No, I knew you were in trouble and I wanted to help." He said, "Well, thank you." He said, "I deal with depression and anxiety." So he and I started talking off Twitter, texting. And he told me 2 weeks before I reached out to him, he was going to kill himself. So if that person in that moment says, "Oh, I'm fine, I don't need help," you still be persistent. If you
You be
feel like
persistent.
you're going to do something, you start gathering information, You stick with them and say, hey, when you're ready, I'm here. But you start gathering information. And if you see where it's going down that point of them going to hurt themselves, then you got to act. You have no choice but to act. You can't worry about us getting mad at you. I mean, we might get mad at you, might not ever speak to you again, but guess what? We're live. Or you can do
Yeah.
and you can deal with the why pain. That's what I call it, the why pain. And you know what the why pain is? Why didn't I help? Why didn't I reach out to them? Why didn't they reach out to me? Why? And that why pain can destroy you. So you have to
Yeah.
be willing to act. You know, it's uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable to come out of that comfort zone because you're worried about what people are going to say. They're going to get mad at me. Am I jumping, my boundaries? No. When it comes to saving somebody's life, there's no boundaries. There's none.
Oh, so okay, so that thank you for that. Then if you have somebody that opens up right away or gives you the indication that there's some thoughts there or there is a plan, what do you do with that? Is that the same situation that you go
You
with them and
act.
get help? Okay.
You act
Okay.
immediately. You can't sit up and wait. If somebody tells you, I'm going to kill myself, I'm going to hurt myself, you act. Whether you have to put them in the car and take them to a mental health facility, or you hope you don't have to do like what my aunt did, have me involuntarily committed. But if that's what you have to do, that's what you have to do. Because if my Aunt Spanky hadn't have done that that day, I would not be here. I'm telling you that now. I would not be
Yeah.
here. She did the ultimate for me. So you have to
Yeah.
do whatever it takes to save our life and don't worry about the fallout. Because as long as
Mm,
we're alive, that's all that matters.
mm,
Yeah.
mm.
Thank you. Thank you very
I want
much.
to expand just on that a little bit. So you were talking about taking them to a mental health facility, or having them involuntarily committed. Those are two options that are available in most places, or is it by state, or is it how does that work?
Well, to be involuntarily committed, you have to let somebody know you're going to kill yourself. You have to, like in my instance, I told my aunt, yes, I was going to kill myself. She had to go to the magistrate's office and swear out to have me involuntarily committed. Now, it's not as easy to do in other states. Some states you
Mm,
have to have more than one person. Because you think about it, anybody could go and say, hey, they told me they were going
right.
to kill themselves. But you have to also take all signs seriously. So some states are different from others. So I always tell people, know your resources on the front end. Don't
Mhm,
wait until something happens and then you're panicking. Because
mm,
somebody took my training one day and they said, Miss Fonda, what is the best way not to panic when you're helping someone who's in crisis or suicidal? I said, it's easy. Know your resources. And you heard me allude to a little bit what I was taken into custody by the police. And I know, and you know this, Melissa, in the Black culture, how we feel about police.
mm,
But there are police officers that can help us when we're in crisis, whether it's mental health, suicide, or addiction. They're called CIT officers, Crisis Intervention Team. They came about when somebody was killed in Memphis, Tennessee, that had a mental health condition. The public went to them and the family and said it has to be a better way to help people with mental health issues. CIT was born. They go through 40 hours of intense training. It's not just classroom. They meet people
mm,
with mental health issues. They go to mental health organizations. NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness, is instrumental in getting these officers trained. And they also do role play. And believe it or not, some of the people who do role play with them are people with lived experience who want to be a
mhm,
part of it. When they get finished, they get a pin that says CIT. Now, not all officers wear them, but they get a pin. Our 911 operators have also in Charlotte have been trained in CIT. So let's say somebody that you know in Charlotte's in crisis. You can pick up the phone and say, this is a mental health, suicide, or addiction call. Would you please send a CIT officer? They're going to ask you questions like, what is that person wearing? Do they have any weapons? Do you know if they have any medication? If they come off their medication, you give them as much information as you can, and they will come
mhm,
out. And it's not about drawing guns on us or taking us to
mm,
jail. It is about de-escalation, getting us help. And we here in Charlotte are very fortunate to have 12 units of CIT officers riding with
wow.
therapists. So we had a CIT officer that will go in and make sure things are safe. and then the therapist will go in. But CIT officers are all over the country, and we even have them abroad. So I tell people, know your resources
Mm,
because it's invaluable when somebody is in crisis. Instead of picking up the phone and say, send the police. And something
mm,
else I want to tell y'all too. In the QPR training, besides sharing my story, I sprinkle parts of my story and other people's stories so y'all get a clear view of what you should do and what you shouldn't do. And one of the things I talk about is when the officer came to get me 28 years ago, he was not CIT trained. We didn't have CIT in Charlotte. And he did something that I tell everybody not to do when we're in crisis. I don't care if it's your husband, wife, brother, sister, children. Don't put your hands on us when we're in crisis. Don't do that.
mm,
Because in that moment, we're not thinking clearly. We could be in a psychosis state. We could be hallucinating. And when you put your hands on us, we could hurt you. You could hurt us. Both of us
mm,
could get hurt. So, what I tell you to do is stand at a distance. You stay calm. I don't care if the other person is getting upset. You stay calm. You don't curse us. You don't call us names. You let us know, hey, I'm here to help you. Let me help you get help. We can get through this. You can get better. You stay calm because 28 years ago, and I don't smoke, drink, never done drugs, I'm not violent. The police officer put his hand on my shoulder, and when he did that, I scratched him. He grabbed me by the back of my neck. He shook me extremely hard and threw me in handcuffs. And if it wasn't for my son Wesley, who was 12 at the time, who said, Mom, please calm down. You need help, I could have gotten seriously injured or killed. So those are just some of the things that you learn in QPR training. And it's just such great training because it provides hope. This is all about providing hope for that person and positivity so they will want to live and they will want to
mm,
go on with their life. And no matter how you feel about suicide, how you feel about mental health, you keep that to yourself because in that
mm.
moment, it's not about you, it's about saving someone's life.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Thank you for sharing all of that, Fonda. Really, thank you so much. You've not been here with us before, but we like to give everybody watching homework so that they can really go home and make improvement in their life in this way in the next week before we air our next episode. So, what is your homework challenge for everybody watching out there?
Just like I told you earlier, caring can save a life. And I give homework assignments throughout the QPR training. And one of them is I tell people, I said, hey, if you know someone who lives alone, because we heard a lot about isolation during the pandemic, but if you know
Yeah.
someone who lives alone, coworker, family, friend, if you know your neighbor across the street or beside you lives by themselves, go check on them. Ask them how they're doing. Call people. And if you don't call and you send a text and say, hey, how are you doing today? And they send you a text and say, I'm okay. I'm straight. I'm all right. Just don't leave it at that. Pick up the phone and say, hey, are you sure you're okay? Would you like to talk? Because this is what I always tell people: treat people with empathy, compassion, and kindness because you never know what someone's going through. I am a
Yep.
social butterfly. My gym, people know me. I have an event there, people know me. But it's days that I go in that gym and I'll put on that smile and I'm hurting. They don't know that I've been sitting out in the car for 15 minutes crying, trying to will myself to come in the gym, and my arms feel like they weigh 150 pounds a piece. And then I go in the gym and put that fake smile on. They don't know that it's some days. Now I work out 3 to 4 times a week and I'm athletic. They don't know that some days I don't have the energy to brush my teeth, comb my hair, or take a shower because depression is kicking my butt. So I leave people
Mhm.
with doing your homework. Treat people the way you'd like to be treated because we're living in very stressful times. And that
Yeah.
smile can be, hey, how you doing? And in there, we're struggling. So that's what I tell people. My biggest thing is check on other people, make sure they're okay, but also make sure you take care of yourself too. Self care is very important. I tell people all the time self care is not selfish, it's mandatory. So, those are my two homework assignments: to check on other people, but make sure you check on yourself too.
Thank you. We also want to encourage you, as always, to take our STEPS initiative course. This is an online virtual course that you can take at your own pace that's going to give you a base foundation of education and resources in racism, gender and equity, sex abuse and prevention, nutrition, psychology, and dance medicine and science. It is free. And Melissa is going to pop that link in for us as well. Um, Fonda, tell everybody where they can get access to the QPR training and sign up for that. I think that's the most important thing that everybody
Sure.
go do.
Thank y'all guys for
Um,
being, because I'm telling you, I tell everybody, I want to get everybody trained. The
yeah,
next QPR training, first off, is free. So don't say, oh my God, I can't take it, because no, it's free. It's going to be Saturday, March 18th from 1 o'clock to 3 o'clock online. You can reach out to me at Fonda Bryant on Facebook, or you can email me at Fonda, FONDA, NC underscore the number 40 at yahoo.com to get the login information. There is no registration. I tell everybody, be on time and take the entire 2 hour training. Once you get finished with the training, you get a certificate that lasts for 2 years. You are a certified gatekeeper. You are a certified gatekeeper, which means you know how to help someone. You get a QPR booklet. It's a really great little booklet. It has more information in it, and you get a QPR resource card. I tell everybody, print out that resource card, know the numbers like 800-273-8255. Know, and this is something I tell people too. I do my homework on mental health and suicide, and I read a report that said only 5% of youth, when they're in crisis, call the National Suicide Hotline. The rest text. So they need to also know this text number. Help, they can text word help to 741-741. That is a national crisis text number. They can text one word, help, to 741-741. And of course, we have a new number, 988, and they can text or call 988. You do not have to be suicidal. You can just be having a crappy day and want someone to talk to. So there is help out there, and there is hope. And as long as we have hope, we'll keep fighting. And I tell people that all the time. I'm here because someone else saved my life. But for me, I have hope. I have hope that one day the suicide rates won't be this bad, that people will be comfortable getting mental health help. And that's why I need everybody's help, because, like I told you before, suicide is everybody's business. And anyone, you do not have to be a professional, can prevent the tragedy and heartache of suicide.
thank you, Fonda.
Thank you so much, Fonda. This has been
You're
an
welcome.
amazingly helpful episode. I think that this is going to help tons and tons of people in our industry, outside of our industry, youth, children. And, this type of conversation is why Bree and I do this show. Because we know how many people it is going to help. So thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. I know you gave people your email address. Is that the best way to contact you about any of your training?
Yes, or they can reach out to me on Twitter and Instagram at ProudMom72. But the best way to reach out to get the link so they can take the QPR training, and then I send them a brief description of what QPR training is. And actually, I did a news story with a reporter here in North Carolina who actually took the training, and she kind of broke it down. So I send that too. But the training is excellent. It's a wonderful training. And besides that, like I said, more likely than not, somebody, when you take the training, you're going to come across somebody who is struggling and can use your help. So I urge everybody to take this training, because it can and will save a life.
I'm committing to doing it, and I'm going to be reaching out to you. I'm really wanting to do this. This
Yeah,
is
please share it. And when you reach out to me and email me, and I think I got y'all's email, I will send you the flyer and you can send it to other people. But just please
we
tell
will
people.
absolutely share it. We will do that.
Thank you so
Yep.
much, guys. I really
Yep.
appreciate this, because the more we work together, the more we can put a
Yep.
dent into this epidemic. And something is really a public health crisis. It's a global health
Yes.
crisis. So we can put a dent in it if we work together.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
This
Thank y'all.
episode, you're welcome. Thank you. This episode in its entirety is available on YouTube. at Apollo Performance and at TP Dance Creations. Please share this episode. This could save someone's life. So please share this episode. We say that every episode, but we are saying right now, this is an episode we want widely shared among all industries and all areas. So please, at Apollo Performance, at TP Dance Creations, please share this episode and share it widely. Bree, you are here with me, and I am so happy you are here with me. I'm happy Fonda was here with me today. I'm happy that we do this show, and I'm glad that we can impact so many people's lives. Thank you to all the viewers who are watching today. And until next time, we hope that you continue your journey beyond the steps. We will see you next week.
Thank you,
everybody.
Bye.